Hi everyone. I would like to share with you my analysis of the round 9 game of the Fide Grand Prix that just concluded. And this game is between Liren with the white pieces and Levon Aronian with the black pieces. So the game started off knight f3, knight f6, c4, e6, g3, d5, bishop g2, bishop e7, castle, castle, d4, and here we have an open version of the Catalan. D takes c4, which is probably the most popular variation nowadays. Closed variation would be c6. Most players will play d takes c4, queen c2, and a6. So just briefly, some of the main themes, ideas for white in the Catalans, of course, to temporarily sacrifice the c pawn because with the bishop fianchettoed on g2, he cannot easily get the pawn back on c4 um, by playing the move e3 as he would play in the normal queen's gambit. So um, it is a legitimate pawn sacrifice. However, practice has shown that black can find it extremely difficult if he does try to hold on to the pawn. Another theme, besides again occupying, controlling all four squares in the center by playing e4, with this bishop on g2, white aims to restrict and control the queen side and hinder white's development and retard his movement in that sector of the board. And sometimes it can become very difficult for black to get his pieces out in a meaningful sense. All right, and Vladimir Kramnik from 2006 to about 2009, I mean, was just playing this opening a lot before the rest of the GMs really started catching on to it. And there's a lot of beautiful games that Kramnik played from the white side. So after Queen C2, A6 was played. Of course, there is this threat to play B5 and holding on to the pawn. So white plays the move A4. And the reason behind that is if he goes queen takes c4 right away, recovering the pawn, then black can solve some of his developmental problems on the queen side by just playing b5, hitting the queen. Not queen takes b5, queen c2, and then bishop b7. And then black will be playing for this c5 break, which is very thematic in the queen's pawn games. If black gets the break in successfully, then he has a nice free game. If he doesn't get the break in, then he has this pawn that's backward on the c file, and then white aims to attack that pawn and control the c5 square. So a4 is played, bishop d7. This is just an attempt to oppose the bishop here on g2 by playing bishop to c6. There's all kind of lines that can be played, and for instance, instead of bishop d7, this knight c6 right away. Sometimes black will allow triple pawns on the c file in order to get rid of this Catalan bishop. So this is just one of several strategies. So queen takes c4, bishop c6, bishop f4, bishop d6, and now queen c1. And Aronian plays a5. There's an interesting plan here. He didn't have to play a5, but his idea is to utilize the weakness created by white's push to a4. The weakness that was created was the square on b4. So he wants to move the knight to a6 and then use this square for his pieces. And he figures the knight will be more, better suited to to be used in the game to come here and then have the option of coming here at some time, as opposed to just bringing the knight right here. So instead of a5, queen e7 is possible, and play could continue. Knight c3, h6, rook e1. Okay, with just a even Steven game, or knight bd7, knight c3, queen e7, and rook e1. Same type of game. It's pretty equal at this point. So Aronian's idea, a5 is not bad. Knight c3, knight a6, bishop d2. And now we see the knight hop into b4. Queen b1. And white is preparing to be able to play e4 here without having to trade off this bishop. So for instance, if he had moved the knight or something like that, then the bishops would be traded off immediately. So he just wants to play e4 and e5. So he moves his queen here. Bishop takes f3. Bishop takes f3. And now c6 as the b7 pawn was attacked. Rook to d1. Queen e7. Knight e4. Knight takes e4. And queen takes e4. Rook fd8. So far, so good for black. Even though he has a cramped position, it's pretty solid. White has more space. He has the two bishops. And he has control of the center. So black is very solid, but he just has to, be patient and not do anything crazy to weaken his position. And he should be just fine here. Okay, so rook fd8, bishop c3, and rook d7, rook d2, queen d8, rook a d1. Nothing to write about in this game so far. The position is pretty equal. Like I said, black is just lacking in space. Position is real solid. He's just lacking in space right now. The knight can jump to d5 when needed, and it's not a big deal, but he just has to be careful because white does have the potential to expand in the center with e4 at some point. And having the bishop here, that could be dangerous as white gains more space. Bishop e7, h4, rook to b8, and e3. So again, just a cramped position for black, but nothing major to worry about here as of yet. Knight d5, queen to c2, and now we see white engineering for the e4 push. Queen c7, king g2, just preventing any kind of possible tactics involving the bishop sacrificing itself here, and for instance a knight coming here, or something of that nature. So gotta stay, stay on your P's and Q's here. So he just moves the king up. King g2, g6, h5, and now Aronian plays bishop f8. And again, we see Liren just slowly just gaining more and more space, little by little, just creeping up on black's position. So now, besides moves like e4, he has a possibility to utilize the h file if it becomes open. So e4 is played, knight jumps back, and now queen b3. and c5. So black finally goes for his thematic break, but unfortunately for Aronian, it happens to be a mistake at this point. A better move is just simply move like bishop h6. It's attacking the rook and forcing a move like rook e2. And remember what I said earlier is that black is cramped in the position, but all he does, basically, he just has to hold. He doesn't have a lot winning prospects, but he definitely can draw. But what happened is the pressure that Liren was putting on Aronian here caused Aronian to make a miscalculation. So he plays c5 here, and then after d takes c5, okay, this sequence is forced because the rook is attacked twice. So rook takes d2, rook takes d2, and queen takes c5. So you might be saying, hey, what's wrong with the sequence? Everything looks equal. The problem is now is he gives up the access to the 7th rank, and there's no way to get the rook out of there. It's the only open file in the position, and this becomes a big problem. So now you have the rook on the 7th rank. There's nothing really to stop queen d1 from happening, and the position is a little more open now for the two bishops. So b5, and what's interesting to me is how Aronian keeps opening up the position even further, and things keep getting better for white, who has the two bishops. So a takes b5, queen takes b5, and there it is, queen d1. So there's a complete domination of the d file. The other idea is to get on the dark squares. We see that there's some weakness around Aronian's king, and lucky for him right now, he has the dark square bishop on f8. So knight c6 and bishop e2. So now the bishop begins to be felt here. Queen drops back to b6 and bishop c4. So again, we're having these themes right now of, and I say themes because they're not like direct threats right now, but there's ideas of, for instance, down the road of moves like bishop takes e6, removing this pawn, right, after the capture, and then opening up things on the diagonal for the bishop and the rook to combine forces. Again, nothing happening at this moment, but you can see down the road. So of course Aronian wants to get rid of the rooks. So b3 is played. Now he's not really worried about rook takes d7 here, because this just allows the domination to continue on the file. So after b3, Aronian played queen a7. So he wants to solve the problem completely. So now white has to do something. And Liren played a bold move here and played rook d6. Because notice that all the penetration points are covered. Rook d7 is covered. Rook d8 is covered by the knight, and d6 is covered by the bishop. So the only move, the only move that he can really do besides rook d6 is maybe humbly return here, which, you know, that's not really saying too much about the position. So Liren decides to play rook d6. He's willing to give up the exchange because he has this powerful bishop on the diagonal. And once this bishop is gone, then the dark squares are really problematic. And that's why I enjoyed the move. He understood that in the position. So he gives up the exchange. Okay, and now, excuse me, Aronian has to worry about getting mated. You have this dangerous bishop on c3 unopposed, and you have this pawn lingering around also, which at some point may either open the h file or simply go to h6, creating back rank possibilities. So queen b6 and queen f4. Queen f4 is a real obvious and primitive move. The idea is just simply come here and mate. So now Aronian plays king f8, and now you see the problem here with the opposition I'm always talking about. Queen and king lined up, and now this is available. And remember, I spoke about that earlier when the rook was still on the 7th rank, about the ideas, and now the idea has manifested. So bishop takes e6 happens, and knight b4. Now I want to give you another option. So instead of just walking into that bishop takes e6, the only real other move was g takes h5, but that's very counterintuitive because you're opening up the king. And after that, queen f6, threatening mate on h8 and g7. So king f8, and then you get bishop takes e6 anyway. Knight d8, queen g7, king e8, bishop d5, and you just wind up in this line winning the rook. So what was played in the game is king f8, bishop takes e6, knight b4, and queen f6. The idea here is, of course, on knight b4, Aronian just wants to snatch the bishop here. But the problem is with the weakness on the dark squares, it's creating a lot of opportunities for Liren. And now the queen cannot capture the bishop here because it would be mate on d8. So let me just show you real quick. Well, I'm sorry, not mate, but the queen would be lost after bishop g7 check. King either has to go here or here, and the queen would be lost. This is why Liren played the move queen f6. So now knight d3, some last desperation, and right here, attack, and bishop d4, just stepping in between that coordination between the knight and the queen on f2. Queen d6, again he still can't take the bishop on e6, and now bishop e3, again just playing on the dark squares, threatening here, and Aronian played knight e1 check. And after king f1, Aronian decided to call it a day, and that was it. Just want to show you another variation. Instead of knight e1, if he tried to just walk away with the king, there's a nice combination here, and that's based on the fact that this queen on d6 is unprotected. So if he played king e8, then just bishop takes f7. See, and the black queen, excuse me, is on Prix. So the only move then is king d7, and then queen g7, threatening discover check, and queen e5, of course, winning the trade. And then you play this move again, bishop e6 check. That's forced, and then you just snatch the rook, and black loses also, but in a more elegant fashion. It's a little bit more difficult. So king e8 was the better move, but he still lost. Instead of Aronian played knight e1, the king stepped to the side, and then that was the game. So that was a nice, straightforward win in the Catalan for Ding Liren. It had nothing to do with the opening. Um, Aronian had equalized effectively in the opening, and he was just cruising until he played C5, which was basically the big mistake in the game, allowing access to the seventh rank. So don't think he lost because of the opening. He played a fine opening. It's just that he got in a cramped position and he tried to break out a little bit prematurely and then wind up losing the game. So hope you enjoyed that game. Please subscribe and like. Comments are welcome, and I'll see you guys later.